Okay, so some of you probably noticed some changes in the background to my videos. And a couple of those are, we've got the Avid dock back here, as well as the Avid S1. Now, what was in place of that prior to that was my SSL UF8. I had two of these. I've sold one. This one's for sale right now on Reverb, and I'll explain why here in just a second. But prior to using any of these control surfaces, the most recent one I'd used before was a DigiDesign / Avid D command, a 24-channel D command, which this desk right here was custom made to fit that, and then I modified it to make all of this work. But anyway, that 24-channel D command pretty much took up the vast majority of this desk back here, and it's a very large one, but probably the best laid out control surface that I've personally ever used in my life. I thought it destroyed the S3, and I also thought it destroyed the C24. And so that thing has been absolutely fantastic, but you can only use it with Pro Tools Ultimate, and I've definitely moved out of Pro Tools Ultimate. Whether or not I go back and dabble in Pro Tools or not, that's still a question to be answered. Now, some of you have noticed that sometimes you see Pro Tools playing in the background when I'm recording my voiceover, and yes, you have, and I've toyed around with going back and forth because there were some features that I used all the time that were just, you could not simply do them without having to manipulate Total Mix to make it happen. And that's only because I've got an RME interface to be able to get done. And that was compelling me to at least consider that move back to Pro Tools. But with the with the latest release of Nuendo 13 and Cubase 13, some of those features that were driving me nuts about Nuendo have now been added into it as features. So as soon as I get a chance to check that out, that may make that path forward so much clearer for me. But that's another video for another day. Now on my channel, you'll know that I really talked a lot about the SSL UF8, absolutely loving it. And without question, this control surface right here is the reason that I ultimately settled on Nuendo. I've got Nuendo here, I've got Studio One, I've got Logic, I've got Reaper, as well as Pro Tools. I have all of those digital audio workstations here in my studio. And as I went through each one of them, when I was kind of fed up with Avid and I did move away from Pro Tools, I obviously gave all of them a really great shot. And then I am a control surface user. I'm not just a mouse guy. And so because I'd become so accustomed to it for decades, quite frankly. And so the control surface layout was very, very, very important to me. And this is an absolute fantastic control surface. But it did lack some things. Some of the things that I found not as easy. It can all be done, but it was just a little bit frustrating to navigate through all the series of buttons and everything, to be able to control plugin parameters as an example, be able to quickly assign a bus to a particular channel, to be able to quickly reroute audio inputs and outputs very easily. Although that can be done on the S8, it's not exactly seamless. It's more definitely the SSL UF8 blows away everything else out there right now. That works off the MCU format, the Mackie MCU drivers, and so without a doubt, it's better. It blows a Mackie control surface away. Absolutely fantastic. And so, but ultimately, those little tweaks in there are what kind of led me to fall in love with it. But it's also some of the things that caused me to go look for something else. Now, I went over to a friend's house who had the Avid dock, and I was blown away. I think most people make the mistake of thinking that the Avid dock and the S1 they only work with Pro Tools, and that's not correct. Yukon is supported by a Digital Performer, by Logic, Cubase Nuendo, as well as Premiere Pro and some other applications out there. It is not supported by Studio One. It is not supported by Reaper. So those other digital audio workstations are fully supported with Yukon, and it works the same regardless of which digital audio workstation you go through. And so when I saw what you could do with this unit, it literally blew my brain. and it really incorporates with a lot of the things that you can do with the incorporating iPads into it, which also look fantastic, by the way. But obviously, this whole setup takes a lot more real estate. My UF8 had been rack mounted in there and was really kind of seamless for that, and it worked great aesthetically. But I am redesigning. I'm going to custom build a new studio desk. That's another video for another day. I'll kind of show you where I'm at with that. But when I do that, it will be designed around incorporating these control surfaces into that. So I have jumped ship. I have gone to the Pro Tools, or the Avid, I should say, not Pro Tools, the Avid control surface. And I'm actually right now, what you see on this screen right now is not in Pro Tools. That's actually Nuendo back over there on the screen. And this is controlling all of that. And here in a second, I'm going to go into this and really try to demonstrate for you very quickly what makes the soft keys and the assignability of those. Now, these keys on here could all be assigned. All these different keys on here could be assigned to do, not all of them, a lot of them could be reassigned to do what you wanted to do through SSL's 360 app. However, it wasn't a 100% full integration like it is with the Avid dock or the Avid control surfaces, the Yukon-based control surfaces. So let's kind of take a break away from this view. I'm going to get this reset up again, and now we're going to take a look at the unit and get a little closer look at understanding just how powerful these soft keys and everything are. Not only powerful, but quite frankly, they can be very overwhelming at times. Now, that said, there's another player in here that I haven't talked about that I use in conjunction with it, and that is I have a Console 1 back over here from Softtube. Now, you may say, well, Barry, isn't that a little bit redundant considering, because I'm going to show you how you control plugins, especially on the dock. On the dock makes it absolutely wonderful experience, okay? But you don't get that muscle memory that's associated with the Console 1 where everything you need is right in the same location. I'll tell you, with a combination of these control surfaces and the Console 1, I have zero need whatsoever to look at the screen for any reason practically. There are, of course, some reasons, but very rarely I can sit and mix an entire song for the most part and get it done with just looking at those control surfaces. And that's a wonderful experience. I could do that with my D command before. And so that really changes the game. So let's get this reconfigured. Let's take a look at these things and you can get a chance to see what it is I'm talking about. Okay, so here we go. Let me start showing you some cool things about this. Now, really, this all evolves around Yukon on the iPad here, as you can see. That really is the heart and soul of this system that makes it very powerful. And for the record, you can get access to these shortcut keys without using the rest of the control surface that you don't see. But when you combine all these together, it truly is a magical experience. Now, let's start going through the top of this. Right now, let me go ahead and hit play here. You're not going to hear anything because I'm talking and you want to hear me, right? Or at least I hope you do. But what you can see here is these are all the individual tracks. As I go through that, I can bank across and go that way as an example. But regardless of all that, you have all those basic controls on the control surface part of it. But again, I want to talk about the soft keys and what you can do with the iPad. So here, if you go over here to tracks, now you get a chance to see kind of a grid mode of all of the tracks within it. And yeah, I can go right there. I can select that track. And for the record, whereas Nuendo did not follow track selection on the SSL UF8, on the Avid dock as well as the S1, and I assume the S3, it does that. I guess Yukon enables you to do that. So as I scroll through here, it changes and goes to all the other tracks in the mix, as you can see. And so now I've got that on a Yamaha kick drum. All right, so now you can just select that and get a good view of that there. And here you can go over here to the channel. This is where it starts to get magical here. You can see this starts out here with inserts. Then it goes to inputs, and this is specific within Nuendo. Here you can set levels, do a high pass, a low pass, and that kind of thing is built in. I do not have any dynamics, so no compressors on this. And this is the default EQ within Nuendo. If we were in Pro Tools, that would show something different. And so here you can see the aux. This is part of the drum kit. So this is going to the B verb as an example. And then pan, as well as the group, you can see that's involved in the group of the kick drum as an example. So I've got 3 or 4 different kick drums going to one bus with a kick. And then here we can look at our overall mix. We can look at our mix. And then heat we're not using here, so that's really not relevant, okay? So let's go back to our inserts. So here you can see that I've got a SSL channel strip, as well as a UAD LA2 and a UAD pure real reverb. Now, I don't really have those on here. Well, I do have them on here, but they're just for illustration purposes to show you this. So as an example, if I want to edit that LA2A, I just select that one. And so now I've got one window here that's going to show on my left-hand side. It's going to tell me what I can control over here. So I've got peak reduction, I've got gain, I've got compressor limit, and then emphasis. And then over here I've got the meter, as well as the mix and the power on as an example. So as I start scrolling through these numbers, you can see that peak reduction on the plugin is being controlled with that, as well as the overall gain. And then here, this is just going to do that toggle switch between compression and that, as well as the emphasis. So anyway, so that's how you would control that. So you want to get back out of that, just hit back to that insert again. Let's say now I want to go down to that pure reverb. I can do that there. And so now I've got 2 windows as an example, which means this one is it shows the 4 buttons on this side, 4 knobs on this side, and then the 4 knobs on this shows the 4 knobs on this side over here. Now I get over to this one. If I want to adjust that page, then I just select that, and now that's over here. To show you more what that looks like, let's choose our 4K, our SSL 4K, which you can see here we have multiple pages of parameters within that. So you want to get down into the actual gain and everything with the high pass. Here you can see if I choose that, I've got the high mid frequency, high mid gain, high mid Q, high frequency, high gain, and high frequency type. So anyway, you can control all of those right there, and you can see that knob up there kind of turning back and forth. And so that's how you would control that. Now you may ask, okay, Barry, I want to add a 4th. Right now you can see I've got 1 through 4 slots on this side and 1 through 4 slots on that side. So in other words, I've only used 3 of these 8 that are displayed on here, okay? So now let's go into this one. Let's go into config. Let's see what I did wrong. Here we're going to go down to soft tube. We're going to choose soft tube. Here we're going to choose dynamics. Again, we're going to go down here to that, and we're going to tell that to go. It's now in, and so now that's selected, and now we've got that up there, and so now we get out of config, and you can see that's now down there. So now here you can see I've got the SSL, the UAD LA2A, the UAD Pure Reverb, and as well as the TubeTech CLB1 Mark I. And so anyway, if I want to control that, then I just come down to here, and now I've got 2 pages there. So if I want to control these, here I've got my output volume. You can see that adjusting. I've got my ratio and my threshold and so forth. So you can control all of those plugins quite seamlessly right there and get to exactly what you want to get to very quickly. All right, so let's get out of here. We can do the same thing with, I showed you before, the input. That's something unique to this. And as an example, if I wanted to go over here to aux as an example, I only have a couple of auxes, but let's see. I don't know if I have a second one added to this or not. Let's go over here to groups as an example. You can see where this is part of the kick. Here I can select here, and I can configure that. And let's say, for example, I want this to go to B snare. I can collect in there. And so now I'm going to collect in there. And so now I can go back and I can control any level that I may send to that snare from the control surfaces side of it over here. And so ultimately, since that's a direct route, it's not going to show that. So you've got all of that ability to add as well as control all of those parameters. Then I can go over to here and I can see the meters of my event or my session. And again, I can kind of nudge, as I want to, back and forth, and you can see what's going on there. So anyway, you can see here I can scroll back and forth fairly easily to see all of that, and you can see up top where it lines up with everything right up there. And then here's where the magic comes. It's all in these soft keys. Now, you can arrange these soft keys however you want within the UConn app on your computer. You can put whatever you want on whatever page. You can configure any page however you want. You can change these existing ones to the ones that you use the most. These are the default ones in here. So you can see under here, I'm going to go to page 1. And now I've got all of these. So if I hit, if I hit save right now, that just saved the session, right? And so now I just saved my session. And so I can obviously scroll across to that and go back and forth that way. Now here I can choose page 2, and it gives me a whole bunch of other options. Notice their name down here. Again, I can name them however I want, and then I can do all the things there. I can do a fade in, fade out, any of the things that I want to do there. Can ultimately, I've got layout, so I don't have any layouts set up in this session, but if I had multiple layouts to it, I could set that up and program that to do whatever I want. So now you've got the soft keys within all of these. Down here, you also have these soft keys that I can scroll down to and get different options that are not part of these up there. So these are always there as an example. So your most used, no matter which window you're in, soft keys, you'd want to put those down there. Now, in the control surface of the dock itself, all of the various buttons in there, those are also all assignable. So the power is really off the charts of this control surface in a way that really kind of makes the UF8 look lacking, in better terms, from a feature standpoint. So that's really some of the compelling reasons why I moved over to the Avid UConn-based control surfaces to give me all of that. And again, I have an S1 setting right next to this as an example. That's an 8 fader. And of course, if I have a channel on here, it's going to control that channel. So if I choose another track as an example, and I go over here to the kick bus, for example, it's adjusting that there. So you've always got one fader if you just had the dock and the dock alone. So anyway, I thought you guys would find this particular thing interesting. The power of this control surface is really quite stunning. Okay, so now you got a chance to see why I find that so compelling. One of the things that drives me absolutely nuts is the fact that Avid's videos on the UConn, as well as the S3 and the S1, as well as the dock, they suck. It's hard to find any out there that really do it in a way that makes sense to really walk you through how the whole thing works. And you kind of got to just figure it out as you go. And that's one of the things I found quite frustrating. And I couldn't really find any other videos done by other YouTubers quite demonstrating any of it either. So I may do that a little bit more in depth a bit later on, kind of the way I did the RME Total Mix videos. And if you're an RME user and Total Mix has been kicking your butt, I've got 4 videos on it that put it in what my mama calls cornbread English, and I highly suggest you go watch those videos. You've got to watch all 4 of them. Do not make the mistake of just going to one of them. Watch all 4 of them. It won't take you that long, and it'll totally transform your ability to use Total Mix. And maybe I'll do the same thing here with UConn and its relationship with the dock, as well as the S1 8-channel control surface. All right. So I'm very inspired by this new control surface. I'm also overwhelmed. There's so much there that can really, if you're not careful, can really get you all tied up in a maze of menu options, which is why you probably want to customize it. And I haven't had a chance to do that yet, to your workflows. Now, for the record, UConn can be customized between digital audio workstations or between applications, right? You can configure it one way for Pro Tools, another way for Cubase, another way for Logic, and another way for Digital Performer. If you're in the market for a new control surface and you're considering the Avid Yukon-based control surface, I'm going to tell you right now, my opinion from this so far is start with a dock. After using the dock, there's no way in the world I would want to do this with just this, okay? Between this one and the UF8, if I'm only comparing the S1 to the UF8, it's nowhere near as compelling. It's just not, quite frankly. Now, you also, if you're not using the dock, you still get all those soft keys and everything in here. I find the integration of both these units to be phenomenal. They are so well thought out in a way that, quite frankly, surprised me. And I'm very, very, very pleased with them. Now, for the record, I did purchase these used. So if you're looking to find a deal, go on Reverb or wherever you like to buy used gear and get a good price on it. I saved quite a bit of money by buying these used, and for all intents and purposes, they're basically brand new. I couldn't tell a difference between a brand new and a used one, except for the fact that I saved about $500. And so, yes, did I lose some money on my UF8s because I also bought those new? I did, but I'm not regretting it at this point whatsoever. Now, if you're not, and I repeat, if you are not in a digital audio workstation where Yukon is available to you, then the next bet, I strongly recommend the SSL UF8. It is a very, very, very good control surface. And when you look at what they've got within their ecosystem, they've got their own version of the dock. They've got their own version. They also have the SSL UF8, and then they also have the one for controlling their channel strip plugin. And all of those do make a compelling choice. But for my workflow, this is what I've chosen, and I could not be happier at this point with that choice. So hopefully you got something out of today's video. Do me a favor, leave me some comments down below. Tell me about your experience if you use this control surface, and or if your experiences with the UF8, if you found any challenges to it whatsoever. Let's talk about that down in the comments, and let's help each other out. But until next time, hope every one of you have a great day. Bye-bye.